And welcome back to the Bluegrass Soccer Academy. We're going to continue our conversation with Don Williams, Head of Operations, Sports Recruiting USA. We'll get some more details about his organization, his process for signing new recruits, contacting colleges to get them signed to play for their favorite university, and some other insights that may help our listeners out. First, a few clips from part one, refresh everybody's memories, followed by part two, and enjoy.
And so I started coaching their goalkeepers and then continued on in college. Anyhow, 20 years later, I was lucky enough to get to coach NCAA, NAIA, Division II, Division III, NCAA, and then junior college. And my last gig was at the head coach of a junior college and a professor up at Feather River College. And we as college coaches have timelines. We have to meet certain things by certain timelines. So we're always under the gun to keep up with those timelines. Plus, our competitors are on similar timelines. Boys physically develop at a much later rate. They continue to grow up into 22, sometimes 23 years old. And bat mitzvah at 13, somewhere between 13 and 15, 16, we kind of know what that woman is sort of looking like. They affect the component of physical that makes up the 4 or 5 pillars, depending on if you want to break psychosocial into 2 or 1, but technical, tactical, physical, and mental.
This kid who is top tier athletic ability, and he has a desire to be a soccer player. He's done rec soccer for years. He shows talent first few years of playing select, but the family just doesn't have the budget or the funds to join these larger clubs that are in the ECNL or Premier League, whatever it may be in that area. What can we tell these families that can't manage that type of atmosphere, but yet they still have a desire to reach that higher level?
They're most likely, unless the kid is a Deion Sanders athlete, multi-sport superstar phenomenon, a lot of hard work, of course, goes into it, right?
Sure.
A lot of hard work. I'm not saying he's not doing, when he was 14 years old, he wasn't doing sit-ups every night. Other kids weren't. But there's a lot of natural ability to it, right? Spud Webb, how many guys remember Spud Webb?
I remember Spud Webb.
He was 5 foot something and could slam dunk.
Yeah,
Tell me that's not some God-given ability there.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, right. So unless the kid's got that and can be plucked out, I did an Inside College Soccer podcast. We did one with Bobby Clark, and we asked him, best player you ever coached, and he named some kid from Maine, right, that he had coached. And the kid ended up, right. I don't remember the name. It was a long time ago, and the kid went on to play at very good levels, but played for him. But he plucked him out of Maine. And he said, and he goes, Maine of all places, right? We all understand the challenge that goes on. But if a kid is truly extraordinary and is a good student, there are kids on scholarship at Real Salt Lake and Earthquakes and being hosted by families. And, it's free. The clubs are free. You just got to be willing to let your kid leave home. There are opportunities at Black Rock Academy for really poor families, and which is where Jack Harrison came over to play at, right? And my friend Tony Muhammad helps run that thing, and we've talked to him on Inside College Soccer about this. There are scholarships available to these great soccering, good education setups around the country. But then most parents go, yeah, but I don't want my kid to leave home. Well, you can't have everything in life. You can't say, I want this, I want this, I want this. Well, here's what it takes to get there. Yeah, but I'm not willing to do any of that. Yeah. Well, then don't go. I don't know what to tell you at that point. We weren't a rich family. We're on a soccer coach's salary, with supplemented by some business ventures that I had going that didn't make me a ton of money, believe me, because I was spread so thin. And my wife worked in a photography studio for not much more than minimum wage. And we had lived in the San Francisco Bay Area and yet found a way to send my kid to study under Franz Hook for goalkeeping and at Sonoma State, and go to Mexico and experience that environment. And again, go over to England and experience that environment. We just sacrificed, right? But we just took the money that most parents are spending on club fees and travel fees today, and we were just kind of setting an amount aside that was less than that, probably four grand a year, call it $5,000 a year. We were probably spending on my son. We would just save up and we'd send him and say, well, that's your birthday present this year. And we would just all make sacrifices, right? And he was going and studying and figuring it out. And it paid off. It paid off. But unless parents and kids can make sacrifices, I have no answers for your question.
No, and that makes sense. And I think we need to get people to understand that, you have to be willing to make sacrifices, like you said. I mean, everything can't be done in the house where you can watch over them all day long. And really, getting the community involved. If there's an individual that could be a Deion Sanders or whoever it may be, a community needs to step in and be like, it's not about competition or shutting him out. It's about finding a way to raise him up and give him help to either get to an MLS team or whatever it may be. So
GoFundMe, selling chocolate. I don't know, right? Go work, go mow lawns. Everybody does restaurants hold this is for Miguel night. And we're going to donate 10% of our proceeds. That goes on here in my town. It should be going. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
Yeah. Good point.
Awesome, Don. So you may feel like you've gotten a little bit repetitive here, but I want to give you an opportunity to just kind of talk about Sports Recruit USA, give you an opportunity to tell our listeners, the players that are listening, hey, I liked what he said. How can I get in touch with you? How can if I get accepted, you talked about your acceptance rate, but if I get accepted, what can I expect from your company? So just kind of give us a real brief rundown of that.
So at Sports Recruiting USA, it's mostly former college coaches at the head of the pyramid of the company, and then goes on down to all of our guys at least played in college. Okay, minimum. They've seen and been through it. They know what it looks like and feels like. So that's what our staff. I got one guy who played at Ajax in Amsterdam as a youth growing up, and he's very, very educated in the soccer world. There's an exception, but most of us, that's what we do, right? And so we're doing the pre-scouting for college coaches and then finding matches for those kids around the country. So people can reach out to us. We're on Facebook. I'm Don_K_Williams. I'm sure you guys will have something to my social media links there,
yes.
and company link. And then it's an application process. We have about a 25% acceptance rate as a company. We just need to know with 100% certainty that where we see you fitting into the college landscape, you are in agreement that that's the area that you would want to go into too, because otherwise we can't help. So, and then we use our vast connections throughout the country to put out the word and to reach out individually. Every once in a while, we'll do a blast email if we think a kid is solid Division I, like zero doubt half the Division I's in this country are going to like this kid. And the kid says, I don't care where I go, and my major is business, and I've got a $40,000 a year budget. It's like, well, this kid needs to talk to a lot of coaches then, needs to figure it out. Every once in a while, we'll use email like that. But really, our job is messaging coaches and talking to coaches and calling coaches. We do that individual outreach, making sure that we're acting like one of their assistants would do before we recommend a player to them, right? So people can apply. They have to go through the application. They have to go through an interview process. We have to see at minimum highlight film, minimum, and then we have to figure out a way to see you play in person. So we'll talk about where your schedules are. Oh, we'll be at Dallas Cup. We'll be at Surf Cup. We'll be at this Jefferson Cup. I've got a staff member going to that one. That one, okay, we can see you play in person. And then once we figure out that we can know exactly what kind of a player you are and that we can help you, we invite you into the SR USA family, and we'll then take over at least the heavy lifting of doing the initial outreach. You'll have to do all the follow-up. So when a coach reaches out to you, you have to make sure you follow up. We do bug our players about you cannot ghost players. If it's that worst junior college in Alaska I was talking about, you still need to tell them, I've done my research and I'm not interested. I appreciate you reaching out to me. Okay? But that's the players' work. And then we develop a strategy for how to whittle down the offers into the 3, 4, 5, and then when you're going to do your visits, help you plan your schedule out, We'll do your film for you and finalize your film for you. Dan Abraham Soccer Academy we've partnered with, so all of our kids get a year's worth of Dan Abraham Soccer Academy sports psychology. We give them college fitness packs so they know what an actual preseason 10-week leading up into August fitness session would look like, what a typical college might hand out, so they can have themselves prepared. We give them the 4 or 5 most common fitness tests that coaches give. And we prepare them physically, talk to them about their game, coach them through weaknesses of their game. So it's a pretty labor-intensive process, but that's what happens with our clients if they get accepted.
So for the listeners here, what is like the prime age that they need to start contacting you? Is there like a minimum age? I mean, obviously by your junior year, you kind of know what you're doing, but what are you looking at as like the prime age that would be great to get a hold of you guys?
Girls going into the sophomore year are great, and then boys in middle coming out of their sophomore year. Give them another 10 months or so of development so we can kind of see what player they're developing into. The boys don't panic unless you're in your senior year. No, even junior year on boys, beginning of junior year can be fine. And then the girls' side of it, the freshman year is not super vital. And we've signed freshmen because we're the same fee whether you're with us for 4 years or 4 months. So a lot of families go, look, I'm positive we want to be with you no matter what. So will you take us as a freshman? Yes. We'll not take 8th graders. We don't. We don't. Because those kids haven't even been in high school yet and interacted with the older kids yet, right? They haven't even played JV with the kids that are a year or two older. We need to see how they react to this emotional, physical thing that is high school that messed us all up, right? That place. Yeah. We need to see how the kids adapt and how they grow with the hormones and all that. So minimum freshman year, but ideally sophomore year is a good time.
Okay.
Awesome. Don, we had a great conversation tonight. Anything before we let you go? Anything you want to close or wrap up with?
No, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. You'll get to see, look, we give out loads of free advice. We have 2 Facebook groups. If you just Google it, they'll pop up. Go into Facebook, Sports Recruiting USA, you'll see them. We give out tons of free advice. You want to know what film looks like? Go on our YouTube page. You can see examples of goalkeepers, forwards, midfielders, backs from all over the world, from different ages. You can go back different years. You can see the guys that are superstars now at Wisconsin, and you can see what they looked like in high school, right? Go to our awesome. YouTube page. Great resource for people, by the way. People ask us all the time, what does good film look like? I go to our YouTube page. It's all public. It's all there. Every client that we've signed over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years is all there.
And we'll definitely include all of those links, all of those contacts in the in the podcast details of this episode. So for the listeners,
and if people ask questions in our Facebook groups, we'll answer to the best of our ability. We've got multiple staff members that are monitoring that stuff, and we'll give out tons of free advice and free information. So ask questions on Twitter. Tag me on Twitter. I'll answer it publicly. You can see, and if it's private, if it's something with your kid, DM me. And if it's a little over the line with now I'm working for you, right? If it's a super labor intensive question, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I'll be honest. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. 2 new guys at this. We've had a lot of fun getting it going, getting it started. I saw your conversation on Twitter. You were very generous to come on and have this conversation with us. So we truly appreciate you.
I appreciate it. I love your guys' setup. I love the casual standing look. It's a different look for a podcast. I think it looks great. Yeah, you guys are doing a good job. I'm sure you'll be successful.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right, welcome back. I think we had a great conversation with Don Williams. Again, Don Williams with SRUSA, Sports Recruiting USA. A lot of information going on here from, D1 expectations, how he deals with players, international type stuff. Yeah, I think that was really interesting, talking about how he deals with that. A lot of stuff going on here, so a lot to compact. So let's get into a few details here. What were some things that you thought were interesting that you want to talk about here?
Yeah, first, big thanks to Don. Little old us. He had no business accepting my invite on Twitter to talk to him, and he accepted graciously. It was a quick process, very professional, so greatly appreciate him.
But, to feed off of that, he knew we were new guys, and it didn't bother him one bit. Yep. So very down to earth, very open to have any kind of discussions about this whole topic here. Yep. So just like you said, very appreciative of his time.
So the first thing that he has said, and it's kind of been a theme for us a little bit through these conversations with our past guest, this D1 or bust misconception. Players have to get that out of their heads. Mamas and daddies have to get that out of their head. And I think hearing it from a guy at his level with what he does for these athletes, I think hearing him that was the one misconception he gave us, really. Stop being D1 or bust. And I think hearing him say that is just really powerful.
Yeah, I want to support what you just said there. This is a guy that's been around the block, and he's seen more than a few things in his time. He's been a club coach. He's been a college coach. He's messed with MLS level teams. Now he's doing recruiting. He's seen all realms of talent levels. He's seen different levels of international type of players that he's evaluating. So just like you said, this is an educational thing here that we need to get people to understand. If you love the game, it shouldn't matter where you play. And where you play is dependent on your talent. And that's another thing that has to be understood here. We've said this before. You have to be realistic, and you've got to be honest. And you can't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 schools I want to go to, and it's those schools or nothing. Well, it's probably going to be nothing because, spaces are limited. Every school doesn't have 30 spaces every season to fill their roster needs.
Right. Two things that you just said that I think he brought up. The first, going with that honest, realistic evaluation of your talent. You have to have other people look at you. You have, whether it's other clubs, other coaches, whatever, other evaluators, whatever it is, you have to have other people evaluate you. It can't just be your best friend. It can't just be your club coach. You have to receive and get that honest evaluation. But yeah, just having that honest evaluation of your talent.
And to follow up what you just said here is be open to that criticism or their opinions, suggestions, because they're not there to put you down. They want to help build you up. And you've got to look at it that way. It's more about where's my weaknesses? Where do I need improvement? We can all talk about our strengths, but having 1 or 2 strengths isn't going to get you to D1. You've got to find what your weaknesses are. You've got to bring those up to another level. So a lot of things to discuss there, but D1 or bust situations, we've got to get that out of our heads. There is nothing wrong with playing NAIA. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with playing with the junior college.
Right.
Because you can always start there and work your way up. But either way, you're there to get an education.
Yeah.
And unless you're going to play in the pros, well, that's probably D1 or nothing there. And not everybody's going to play in the pros.
And something you mentioned and Don brought up as well, that numbers game. He threw a lot of facts and figures out at us that I like, and you can tell he loves what he does because he had those numbers ready. But when you look across every league, every college, every university, every level, he said 43,000 college openings. That's it. When you hear that number, you think, oh, well, that's a lot of spots. But when you think about the vast, what we're talking about,
big country,
we're talking from the JUCO ranks to through the D1 ranks, 43,000. That's not very many.
And that's everything. That we need to make sure we understand here. That's American players. That's players from England, Spain, Argentina. They're all coming into the United States to play soccer and get an education. So that number dwindles for the American player. And it's very important to know what fits your level of talent. And like you said, Get out of your comfort zone.
Yes. Yes.
Find something that you're not used to. He even said, get a team where you're on the bench.
Yep.
And you've got to work your way to a starting position. Don't just be, I'm the greatest player on this team. If you want to be that, that's fine. But the chance of you getting into D1 with that, it may not happen. And just like you said, honest, realistic evaluation of our talent. We've got to be honest with ourselves. And he was saying it straightforward. He's had to tell players and their families, you're not good enough.
Yep.
And we have to be able to accept that.
And I'm sure those are tough conversations for him,
Sure.
for a player, for parents, for families. But it's one of those conversations that when you really look at it, wouldn't you want to hear that? Isn't that what you need to hear? Hey, you're looking here, and we need to be looking here.
I mean, we don't want to waste our time with something that isn't going to develop into something.
Well, and I just look at it as an athlete who is waiting for that offer from UCLA or UK or wherever. And so they've turned down an offer to Transylvania. And they've turned down an offer, to a smaller school in Missouri. And then all of a sudden that reality hits them. And they call Transy up and say, hey, I'd like to. And they're like, sorry, we've moved on.
Yeah.
And now you've missed everything.
Right. Yeah, very important here. The numbers game, it matters. And like you said, 43,000 openings, that's all levels. That's everything in the United States. So you've got to get yourself out there. And then by a certain point, you've got to say, I'm just not good enough for certain levels.
Right.
One of the other things I want to point out here that he discussed, and we haven't heard this before, but when we asked him a certain question about what your kids in high school need to be doing, he asked boy or girl. Biology matters.
Yep.
We develop differently. We develop at different times. We develop early. We stop early. We go to later times. And I think he said the boys can develop up until about 21, 22 years old. They're going to get that muscular upper body and develop into men.
Right.
Women, 15, 16 years old, you're pretty much done growing or developing, and that is pretty much what you're going to be. So, and more things that he also talked about was your athletic ability. Are you fast? Are you strong? Those things matter in your athletic ability, not just your soccer knowledge.
Yeah, when we pose these questions, when we have these questions, I think we both kind of have, okay, this is what I think he's going to say in our minds. That was an answer I was not expecting. You're right. The question was, as a freshman in high school, what should I be doing to prepare myself to be recruited? And his response was, are you a boy or are you a girl? Mm-hmm. Very eye-opening for me in that regards. But yeah, I think that's important for the listeners to hear too, that biology does matter. And depending on male or female, you're going to have to look at things a little differently.
Yeah, there's no question here. And in our day and age where biology and genders is, I guess it's confrontational now.
Right.
But how we develop as human beings, that's never been disputed. Women are going to develop a certain way, and there may be a few exceptions to the norm.
Of course.
And men are no different. But what you are as an 8th grader is not going to be who you are when you graduate high school. And that's going to be taken into effect when these college coaches are looking at you. They want to see you when you're a freshman, but they're going to watch how you develop. And if you're not developing to their liking, that may drop you out of their possibility of being accepted through a college.
The other thing that caught my attention, and we've mentioned this a little bit already in our rundown, our breakdown here of our conversation with Don Williams, getting out of your comfort zone. Getting out of that, I am the best player on this team. I'm always the best player on this team. How come nobody's talking about me? Well, maybe it's because your team's no good. Or maybe it's because you are playing in one of those lower level leagues. And so you have to be willing as a player to get yourself out of those comfort zones. Go try out for the team above you. He mentioned just joining a Thursday night adult league and just changing up that competition, doing things that make you uncomfortable to help you improve as a player.
I think a lot of times, and I know we've seen that in our area, where the badge on your chest is more important than the development of your talent. And we see, the parents with the money can go to the big clubs. The parents with not much money have to stick with maybe a local club. If you have the opportunity to change that up a little bit, because you're not just changing the name on your chest, you're changing the talent that's around you. You're changing the coaching styles that you're dealing with. There's a lot to look in here. There's a lot of benefits to challenging yourself. If I had the same coach from the time I'm 6 to the time I'm 16, there's probably a lot of things I'm missing out on. And your talent level is probably going to be affected by that. So I love his statement there. Get on a team that you're on the bench, you've got to prove yourself. Maybe you're the best player. Go find some other team and prove yourself again. Changing your environment, it's going to affect your talent level and your development. I think it's a great perspective of what Don brought up.
And to tie into that, I really like the conversation he had about even that, and I think this topic was more geared towards the families, but can you make that sacrifice to help your player get to that next level? Whether it's arranging carpools to get somebody somewhere. Is it reaching out to the community and saying, hey, I got a really good athlete here. Can we get some help to financially? Just even going along with that, getting out of the comfort zone, sometimes that's going to take parents and family members to also come out of that comfort zone to make some sacrifices to help your player.
I think with our overall humanity and humankind, this needs to be a bigger discussion. The communities need to see that people need help. And if there's a kid that has the talent, we shouldn't be finding ways to shut them out. And unfortunately, we've seen, I guess, the bad side of that kind of situation where parents see their competition has a player that maybe he's illegal in some way, not like immigration type of thing, but, grades or whatever it may be.
Right.
We should be finding ways to elevate the talent.
Yep.
Because the talent is what's going to make these colleges better. It's going to make the men's national team better, women's national team better. And we're struggling with that. We're struggling with developing talent at the higher levels. And it starts here at the high school, middle school levels, where we have seen incredibly athletic kids no longer play soccer, but go play football or baseball or basketball because it's not going to be as much money for them. And we need to find ways to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, definitely. I want to circle back to that numbers game talk we were having, the conversation we were having, and really even the honest real evaluation of your own talent. Something he brought up twice on two different occasions. I just had to stop and write it down so I didn't forget it again. He mentioned the words soccer junkie several times.
Oh, yes. I love that he brought this up.
And, especially for the athletes, the players that are listening that are top level, you don't have to be living and breathing it, but you have to be working at it. Are you studying the game? I loved he brought up that they ask players, are you a fan of the game? Oh, yeah. Well, who do you watch? Oh, well, I watch the women's national team. Oh, so you watch every 2 or 4 years. I love that conversation because it is so true where if you aren't a student of the game,
yep,
that whole tactical part of the game, you're going to fall behind in because, as he mentioned, there are other players that are students of the game.
Yeah, I love that he brought this up because you and I didn't grow up with the opportunities that kids have these days. I didn't get the chance to watch Premier League when I was growing up. I didn't get to watch MLS when I was growing up. I didn't have YouTube channels to watch. I didn't have, whatever social media. There are so many ways to learn this game now that there's really no excuse to be behind in your soccer IQ. I mean, there's informational videos. There's, just like he has Facebook stuff where he's willing to hand out free information.
Yeah.
And then you've got the professional leagues that are all over. You've got Premier League, you've got La Liga, you've got Bundesliga, you've got MLS, I think even the Mexican League. All of this is in American television now. And the reason he's bringing this up is if you're wanting to play a D1, you should be surrounding yourself by soccer people. You know, your friends are lovers of soccer, your parents are lovers of soccer, your coaches, and you can just have conversations with anybody. I know you and I will watch Premier League from our houses and we'll text each other about things that have happened.
Right.
And we're just noticing things that we're watching, and we're always learning from watching the games. And I think that's a huge thing that kids aren't doing enough of. They're watching their goofy YouTube stuff instead of watching, hey, if I need to prove, here's my weakness, I need to watch some YouTube videos to work on that weakness. And I love that he brought that up. It's something that's not really discussed, but soccer IQ is a big deal, especially with soccer coaches or college coaches. They want to know, can you solve problems on the field?
Right.
I can probably throw any drill and you can probably go do it. But if I gave you a problem, can you solve that problem?
Right. Yeah, definitely. The final thing that I want to bring up is just Don's business. His what's the word I'm looking for? You know, his job with this Sports Recruiting USA, this SR USA. It sounds like an absolute fabulous company. It sounds like they're a company that if you can get in, and it sounds like it's competitive, but if you can get in, they're going to take so much of this heavy lifting recruiting stuff off of your shoulders and do it for you.
Yeah. We talk about finding opportunities to get your names out there. This is one of them. And this is a team. It's not a guy. It is a team. It is an organization. And if they accept you on, they're going to give you their full attention to find ways to develop you, brand you, and basically sell your talents to the school that fits you. Not just a school that you want to check off your box, but one that fits your talent level. And I love that he's having these discussions with guys like us, and we can get the word out for kids to have more opportunities.
Yeah, and what you said there, I think, is really important. Finding the school that fits you. Because oftentimes that's the school that isn't on our list, or is maybe down far on our list. But they're going to be honest with you. You know, all these things that we talked about tonight, they're going to do for you. But the most important thing that this SRUSA is going to do is they're going to be honest. They're going to say, hey, here's where you are going to fit in. And I think that's so important. And so if you are sounds like freshman and older at this point, and he said that they work with athletes for 4 years to 4 months. So, you know, if you're interested, there's no hurt in applying. I mean, the worst they'll say is no. Yep. So, again, a big thanks to Don. And I would, if I was an athlete, I would definitely look into his company, and all of those links will be on the episode details of this podcast.
Absolutely. This has been the Bluegrass Soccer Academy. Thanks for joining us.